military have showcased several significant flaws that have resulted in tragedy. Conventional counter-personnel non-lethal weapons like rubber rounds, beanbags, and water cannons use kinetic energy to break hostile groups apart and dissuade them from advancing on a specific perimeter. However, kinetic-based systems present a significant risk of human injury, depending on the part of the body the weapon makes contact with and the environmental characteristics in a specific scenario. A rubber round might be mostly non-lethal by itself, but it can push an intruder off a tall structure. As such, the technology becomes harder to control. Additionally, the effectiveness of conventional kinetic solutions fluctuates drastically depending on the target's size, age, and gender, making it unreliable and prone to fatal accidents. If a kinetic weapon is designed to take a hostile male out of a battle unharmed, the effects could be considerably more severe if the same system is used against a female perpetrator.
Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's Richie from Boston. It's the 18th. It's January. It's 2026. All those things are debatable, but let's get past that because we've got bigger fish to fry. Lots and lots of crazy things are going on all at one time. And I wanted to show you a few things that I've mentioned before, but I'm going to show them to you in detail so you can understand what it is I'm talking about. And strangely enough, while I'm compiling this video, my buddy Ivan from American Mexican Gunslinger YouTube channel uploaded a video very, very similar. But I want to break down to you exactly what happened in Venezuela and exactly what I've been talking about for the last decade about having weapons is great, but if they use a weapon against you and you're not able to pick your weapon up or remember how to use it, what use are they? You know, because people, they want to take the guns. They don't care about the guns. I've been saying that for a decade easily. And, well, this right here is why.
For the new world order.
Did the U.S. military deploy a secret sonic weapon during the raid in Venezuela? According to witnesses on the ground, the operation began with an unexplained radar blackout, followed massive drone swarm and the sounds of helicopters. Despite being outnumbered 5-1, the small U.S. Special Forces team faced less resistance. Why? Reports indicate soldiers suffered from vertigo, vomiting, and internal bleeding. Military analysts believe this was a soft kill operation, likely utilizing a high-power microwave device. More detail all in the video ahead. Based on witness testimony, here's how the event likely occurred. Venezuelan soldiers were on standard guard duty when their radar systems suddenly shut down without warning. Immediately after the blackout, a massive drone swarm appeared over the facility, followed by 8 helicopters equipped with unidentified technology. A 20-man team of Delta and Special Forces operatives deployed from the helicopters. The encounter took a mysterious turn when the defending force of 100 soldiers reportedly froze, leaving them unable to compete with a smaller elite team. Witnesses noted that the Delta Force operatives fired with impossible precision, estimating a rate of fire near 300 rounds per minute per soldier. It is theorized that Black Hawk helicopters were used to deploy this capability, utilizing disc-shaped radar attachments to launch a directed beam at the opposing troops. They reported internal trauma. They suffered immediate vestibular incapacitation, meaning a total loss of balance and paralysis. Some even reported bleeding from the nose and vomiting blood, symptoms consistent with internal hemorrhaging. While the Pentagon hasn't officially disclosed the specific hardware, military experts often call this a soft kill system. So how does it actually work? To understand the weapon, you first have to look at what it did. The most likely candidate for a weapon that creates that kind of internal pressure without external sound is a high-power microwave device. It relies on something called the Frey effect. The weapon, probably carried by a Chinook or a Black Hawk helicopter, fires a focused beam of pulsed microwave energy, not sound waves, that passes right through the skull. These beams are absorbed by the water in the brain tissue and the fluid in the inner ear. Energy causes a minuscule rapid heating of the tissue, less than 1 degree Celsius. But that tiny sudden expansion generates a pressure wave inside the skull. The consequence? The target hears a sound, clicks, buzzing, or a roar that originates inside their own head, bypassing the eardrums entirely. If the frequency is tuned to the resonance of the inner ear, it violently disrupts the body's balance, causing immediate vertigo. At higher power levels, that rapid tissue expansion can rupture capillaries, leading to the reported nosebleeds and internal trauma. There is another possibility, a weaponized infrasonic pulse emitter. Instead of a continuous beam, this device would fire high-intensity slugs of low-frequency air pressure below 20 Hz. These waves travel through the body to match the resonant frequency of internal organs like the stomach or lungs. High-intensity infrasound can actually cause cavitation, the formation of bubbles in bodily fluids. When those bubbles collapse, they create tiny shockwaves that damage tissue. The target feels an intense vibration in their gut, leading to severe nausea and effectively paralyzing them with pain and sickness. Tactically, the reports suggest U.S. forces use this technology as the ultimate force multiplier. The result was that the hundreds of Venezuelan guards mentioned in the reports weren't fought in a traditional gun battle. They were incapacitated, sick, dizzy, and bleeding, long before U.S. troops made contact. This allowed a small team of approximately 20 operators to walk virtually unopposed through a much larger force. But that's not it. The U.S. military has another secret weapon. Analysts called it the Iron Dome of the Caribbean. They said the airspace over Venezuela was impenetrable, locked down by the Russian-made S-300 anti-system, a beast capable of swatting aircraft out of the sky from 150 miles away. But, in the dark night, the myth of invincibility didn't just crack. It evaporated. The opening salvo didn't come from pilots, but from physics. The U.S. Gerald R. Ford, stationed off the coast, unleashed a barrage of electronic warfare so dense it didn't just jam the Venezuelan radar screens, it burned them white. The S-300 operators at Captain Manuel Rios Air Base were blind before they ever saw the missiles coming. The first kinetic strikes were surgical from a destroyer. 2 Tomahawk cruise missiles slammed into the S-300V at radar arrays. In an instant, the eyes of the Venezuelan defense network were turned into twisted, red-hot scrap metal. Precision-guided bombs walked down the flight line. One by one, the Su-30s and the aging X-16s parked beside them were engulfed in fireballs. 7 jets were erased before their pilots could even reach the ladders. It wasn't a dogfight, it was an execution. But the final blow was psychological. At 4:20, the roar of jet engines shook the windows of downtown Caracas. The target was Fort Tuna, the headquarters of the Ministry of Defense and the nerve center of the regime's military command. The strikes didn't level the city, they decapitated the leadership's ability to communicate. As smoke billowed from the ministry buildings, the message was clear to every commander on the ground: you are alone. You are alone and that no help is coming. But all of this is just a deception. The main target is none other than the president. We finally have the declassified timeline of how U.S. forces breached the heart of Caracas and extracted Nicolás Maduro. Let's start with step 1. The setup. This didn't happen overnight. For months, the U.S. had been tightening a naval quarantine around Venezuela. The U.S. Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group and the U.S. Iwo Jima Amphibious Ready Group were parked off the coast. The pretext was clear. The U.S. designated the Venezuelan government a narco-terrorist state, specifically targeting the drugs lords, but while the Navy squeezed the coast, intelligence assets were tracking one man. They waited for a specific window, a moment where Maduro was stationary and vulnerable. Step 2, the strike. It began at exactly 2 in the morning Venezuelan Standard Time. High above, several F-35 stealth fighters punch a hole through the enemy lines, destabilizing their anti-air defenses. Like these Russian S-300 missiles located all over the strategic high-value target. With the skies cleared, the path opens for Delta Force helicopters to fly straight towards the mission. Here comes the deception as the helicopters flew. The jets started firing with more strikes as it hit Fort Tuna, the main military base and command center, and La Carlota Air Base, destabilizing Venezuelan air support. Reports from the ground describe widespread explosions and a sudden communications blackout. The chaos wasn't the goal, it was the cover. But how did the raid happen? We have to look at step 3. Under the cover of darkness and chaos, the Tier 1 operators went to work. But what is the exact unit tasked with the mission? It is the Delta Force, one of the most elite secretive special forces units in the U.S. military. Witnesses in Caracas reported low-flying aircraft skimming the rooftops, flying well below radar coverage. The team breached a secure compound believed to be a safe house within the massive Fort Tuna complex. Resistance from the Venezuelan Presidential Guard was swift but ultimately futile, as the helicopters lay cover fire. The operators moved with surgical speed, landing on multiple points. But how exactly the capture and extraction happened? For this, let's look at step 4. Specialized helicopters hovered over the objective to insert the assault team. While dozens of attack helicopters laid down suppression fire, the Delta Special Forces descended and started the search for the high-value targets. How did they find him? Simple. The CIA had planted spy inside Nicolás Maduro close circle. While back in the US, Delta Force built an exact replica of his safe house, rehearsing the raid until they could do it blindfolded. While operators breached the room so fast, his security could not even react to the situation as the sound of flash grenades disoriented the security guard. Using blowtorch, they caught him before he could even lock all the doors. Maduro's shock and awe froze him as Delta Force breached the compound. Nicholas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, were physically secured. This wasn't a negotiation. They were detained.
So there it is. This was the technology I was alluding to a decade ago, because I know it exists. I happen to know it exists. I just couldn't really explain it well, but Illuminati on BitChute did that 4.5-minute video, and that's exactly correct. The Venezuelan forces didn't stand down. They were put down. We only had 20 operators go in there and take Maduro. Completely 100% illegal. It's against all the laws of the land. So don't forget that. But here's something that'll help you out, okay? I've got a Amazon list on Jailbreak, and I'll leave a link for it below. But if you go on my Jailbreak Overlander Amazon list, link will be below, there's all sorts of things about bugging in, overlanding, drones I use, the mountain bike gear that I use, that it's also dual purpose gear, as you can see. But right here, EMF proofing. You see this? If you're concerned about that type of weaponry, you're going to want to carry around one of these or one of these. I would highly recommend this EMP-proof hoodie, because if you start seeing people dropping exactly like they showed us in Leave the World Behind, remember that? Barack and Michael Obama's movie, where they showed this to us. They showed this to us for a reason, okay? What you're seeing being represented right here is exactly what Illuminati just explained that just happened to the people in Venezuela. This is a very real thing, and at some point, you're going to have to deal with it. So use those links, order those items, order a bunch of items from there that have to do with bugging in, bugging out, being stuck in your car, or whatever, or don't. But find some sort of an EMF-proof hoodie that can protect you, because I carry these at all times. Never trust somebody that carries ear protection at all times. But I carry ear protection at all times. These particular units right here, you melt these, you put these in hot water, and then you mold them to your exact ear so they fit exactly. And if you're an idiot like me, you have to put R and L on them so you don't put them in the wrong ear, because they'll fit really great, but they won't work. You got to put them in the correct ear. But it's a reason why I carry these, and I've been carrying these since I told you to start carrying these when Leave the World Behind originally came out. But people didn't believe what I was saying. And it's hard to find patents for that stuff because they don't want you knowing about that stuff. It's classified, top secret, etc. And it only shows up when people go and steal the president of another country. And speaking of that, Trump actually put up his own Wikipedia page where he's now calling himself the president of Venezuela. No conflict of interest there. President of the United States, president of Venezuela, but beholden to Israel, the synagogue of Satan, the people that call themselves Jews but are not. But on that, I'll digress. Take a look at this, because this was 2 weeks ago. So what is that? Is it fireballs from the sky? Are they testing? Is it aliens? Well, it's not aliens. We're going to get to aliens in a couple of minutes because we have to, because it's going to affect you directly on so many levels. But remember this.
In 1974, after being a sixth grade school teacher, I was introduced to the late Dr. Wernher von Braun in the U.S., the father of rocketry. In my first meeting with him, during that first 3.5 hours, he said to me, "Carol, you will stop the weaponization of space." And I said, teachers don't stop until June, he said, no, you have to understand, this is February, and we have to prevent the weaponization of space because there is a lie being told to everyone that the weaponization of space is now first being based upon the evil empire, the Russians. There are many enemies, he said, against whom we're going to build this space-based weapon system, the first of whom was the Russians, which was existing at that time. Then there would be terrorists. Then there would be third world countries. Now we call them rogue nations or nations of concern. Then there would be asteroids. And then he would repeat to me over and over, and the last card, the last card, the last card would be the extraterrestrial threat. Well, at the time, I kind of laughed when he said asteroids, and when he said extraterrestrials, I knew I wasn't going to deal with that subject. And now we hear on the news just today, this week, that they've slid in another enemy. Only this time we're going to protect our satellites. In other words, we have to have some reason to spend these trillions, to waste these dollars on a space-based weapon system, and they're all lies.
Now, for those who don't know, she's talking about Wernher von Braun. Here he is right here with his Nazi counterparts because he was a Nazi. He was a Nazi higher up who was in charge of slave labor, in charge of killing people, and he made rockets for the Nazis. Well, we captured him, brought him back home, and whitewashed him for the American public. So much so that Wernher von Braun was on with Walt Disney, just like pictured right here, all the time talking about going to outer space and how he was going to take us to the moon, and all the kids loved him and he learned to speak really good English, and they never once mentioned that he was one of those, as they quoted it, quote unquote, murderous Nazis. You know what I mean? I'm not going to get into the Nazis right now, but they told us Nazis were bad unless, of course, they could use them. But here's the funny thing. Wernher von Braun was telling his associate, Carol Rawson, who was a teacher, a military strategist, and a speaker, that in the last days, they're going to start pulling a bunch of things. And she called it the last card. And she said the last card was going to be aliens. And the funny thing about that is you'd think that he would know about that because he's the guy that takes us to outer space, right? Well, there is no outer space. And I know it. Hopefully you know it. But Wernher von Braun knew it, and the way he chose to tell us was by leaving it on his headstone, like this. This guy was a lifetime space guy, but at the end of his life, he selected Psalms 19:1 for his headstone. Psalm 19:1, not Psalm 19:2 or 19:3, Psalm 19:1 that says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork." Because there is no outer space. The entire thing's completely and utterly fake, but they're going to use this staged alien invasion to their advantage on every single level. And this is the latest thing that came out yesterday. The Bank of England must plan for the United States disclosure of aliens because it will cause a complete and utter financial crisis. And this is on Briefs UK. It's on Gizmodo. It's making the rounds. So one way or the other, it's either going to be left-wing, right-wing, Russians, China, conspiracy theorists, somebody, or aliens. Somebody is going to completely 100% clean out your bank account overnight. And this past week, we have seen them 3 days in a row where Amazon's AWS was out. Amazon's AWS is a massive computer that all sorts of companies all over the world, Instagram, Facebook, well, not Facebook, not Instagram either. My bank, your bank, telephone companies, everybody rely on Amazon to take care of their computing power because Amazon, Meta, OpenAI, Grok, all are destroying the United States specifically, but they're putting data centers everywhere, and they want you to be on a digital dollar, but every time we turn around, the phone doesn't work, the bank doesn't work, your bank account's at zero. They're practicing, they're testing. This is all ramping up. They just came out and said the New World Order. And now Britain is openly saying that alien disclosure by the United States is going to cause the entire economy to completely implode 100% for whatever reason. Remember this. Look at this. Look at these prices. When I first started talking about Goldco, where you're not buying gold, you're trading your 401k or your IRA in for actual gold or silver. If you had listened to me when it was at 1700, you would have almost tripled your IRA. The bank wasn't going to do that. And for everybody whose kids I gave rolls of silver ounces like this right here, don't spend those. Like I told you then, kind of wish I had held on to those at this point, but it is what it is. What are you going to do? Get your money out of the bank right now because it's not going to be there anymore. They've got the alien thing all lined up because people are seeing crazy stuff in the skies every single day, everywhere. It is an absolute trip. I've never seen it this active in my entire life. And I just discovered a movie called Greenland where there's comets coming and everybody has to escape to Greenland. But it came out during the pandemic, so it was never actually released in the movie theaters, just dropped on Netflix and Amazon Prime, things like that. But I found that very, very strange because Greenland would be a good place to be if you're destroying the United States. And I say that they're destroying the United States because they're going to. And for those that aren't aware, they sent all these out to postal workers this year. They've only done this one other time, and it was right before the pandemic. How could you send it out right before a pandemic if a pandemic is an act of God? Do you see what I'm saying? But they sent these out, and I want to show these to people again because this can't go down the memory hole. This happened. I had 5 subscribers so far send me in copies of these that they received on January 5th, 2026, and it says, due to large-scale emergencies, meaning epidemics, hurricanes, civil unrest, etc., the mail got to keep on mailing. We haven't seen that before the pandemic, and we haven't seen it since the pandemic until now, okay? So the only times the Postal Service has sent these out to the mailmen, we had a lockdown, a mandatory lockdown. And it's funny because the subscriber I just spent 5 days with, we were laughing about the mandates because he was also on the road when they told us to lock down. So I must have passed him at some point on the highway. I had to get out of there because I got things I have to get squared away. And it's crazy there. He lives a crazy life. This guy's no joke whatsoever at all. Brett, he even sent me off with bison hot dogs. I mean, what's better than bison hot dogs? I'll tell you. Bison burgers and 3 real dogs. Mac, Waker, and Hendry. I miss those dogs already. What a life this guy's got. But I'll be back down there soon. Creek don't rise, good Lord's willing. At any rate, Richie from Boston. Links will be below. Use them or don't. But I mean, the clock is ticking. Every day they're just saying something new. Something new. You know, the government of the United Kingdom has come out and said, when America does alien disclosure, it's going to destroy the financial system. They're just telling you, do it or don't. And those hoodies, if you can't afford an EFP hoodie, at least get the hoodie itself that goes around your head. And if you see people start dropping like you saw, because you won't be able to miss it, whip that thing on and button it down. You know what I'm saying? I mean, literally, dude. I carry earphones for LRADs and other things like that, but the EMF hoodie, I have a stupid beanie. I feel like a dork owning an EMF-proof beanie, but not so much anymore. At any rate, Richie from Boston, and I'm out.